everybody. Welcome back to the 7-Stage LSAT Podcast. We are here every week to help you understand the test, build better study habits, and of course, improve your LSAT score. And I'm Bailey, one of the instructors here at 7-Sage.
And I'm Chapin. I'm also an instructor at 7-Sage. Today we're talking about something we see all the time when students are pushing from the high 160s into the 170s, the habits that actually separate top scorers on logical reasoning.
It's a tough one to crack. I definitely used to think that it was like for me to get in the 170s, I just had to work harder, like do more questions or, I don't know, magically get smarter. Like I didn't have the ability to approach the test and there was just no way that I could improve. But no, it's a lot about just making sure that you're changing how you approach the LR questions, what your mindset is related to this test, how you're reviewing, how you're setting up those stimuli. We'll get into these kind of 3 habits that separate the people who are scoring the 170s from anybody else. And on that note, first thing that we want to talk about is just looking into little gaps or holes in reasoning. Anytime that we're dealing with a question that's like, let me rapid fire them off that this could apply to. Anytime where there's a complete argument in the stimulus and we're trying to figure out something related to what's wrong with it, like flaw questions, any sufficient or necessary assumption questions, pseudo-sufficient assumption questions, strengthen, weaken, all of these question types, evaluate, they're related to some sort of gap or hole in the reasoning. And if you are already going to the answer choices blind, like not knowing already what you might be looking for in terms of some sort of assumption that they made, some sort of jump that they made between premises and conclusion, or perhaps between premise to premise, where it's like, whoa, you're trying to pull a fast one on me. You're trying to make me think that that conclusion really does follow from the premises, but there's a reason to doubt it. That's the kind of thing that you really want to be looking for before you even go into those answer choices. Like if you're going in blind, you're already setting yourself up for not getting the answer right. Any thoughts on this, Chapin? Did you like always kind of approach LR questions by looking for that gap or hole? Did you have like a turning point in your studying?
Yeah, I think my turning point probably was when we talked so much in the core curriculum about pre-phrasing. And I think at the beginning I was like, well, how am I supposed to know the right answer if I haven't seen the options yet?
Right. I was like, what is the sorcery? What do you
I'm
mean?
like, how am I ever supposed to predict that? Like, I don't know. And so I don't think I wasn't reading like critically enough with that kind of in mind, looking for something, because even like you mentioned strengthening questions, and even on strengthening questions, we can look for that gap, right? Like we can still be almost criticizing the argument to figure out what it needs, right? And what we can add. And same thing for sufficient assumption. But yeah, I just don't think I was looking with that intention. I was just like, okay, I'm going to read this and then look at the answer choices and see like what I think from there.
Perfect. Exactly. Yeah, I definitely had that same mindset. And honestly, you're already ahead of me because I thought for most of my studying that since it was the LSAT, these arguments must be good. Like I thought they were solid reasoning. I thought it was all valid. And so I was so confused whenever they were asking me what the flaw is because I'm like, oh, yeah, that was a perfect argument. I'm confused. Like, what do you mean? And that was hard for me to relearn. I'm so glad that you didn't have to go through that. And I think most people, as long as you have some sort of an understanding of just what kind of questions they're throwing at you, these are mostly bad arguments. They're mostly invalid in terms of they make some sort of assumption, jump between premise and conclusion. That's going to get you so much better at the test. And yeah, I definitely also felt like it was kind of impossible on my own. Like I would watch the explanation video. I'd be like, okay, well, JY, you're so smart, but how do I do that on my own? Like I felt like I was just kind of stuck. And I think so much of getting past that is, again, shifting your mindset and spending a little bit more time with stimuli. Like reset if you've been doing things timed right now and that's really holding you back to feel like you don't even have the time to predict, pre-phrase what you might be looking for, at least in that gap or hole in the reasoning. Do more untimed practice, do a set of maybe like flaw, assumption questions, strengthen and weaken. And don't even let yourself look at those answer choices. Like I train myself to do this by putting a physical sticky note on my screen and covering it up. Don't even let yourself look at those answer choices until you can articulate in your own words, why are we not believing this conclusion based on those premises? Or other ways to ask yourself that is like, what's a world where the premises might all be true, but my conclusion might not still follow? Or any reason that I'm doubting this conclusion if all these premises really are the case? Anything where there's little term shifts, anything new or unsupported in the conclusion, or a jump between premises, those are great to look out for. And the more you slow down and just read really carefully, pause every couple words, they're going to pop right out to you. And you're going to be like, oh, now I can't unsee it. Like now I see these gaps or holes. Do you have any other advice for, like, how to get yourself to spot the gap? Like, do you have questions that you ask yourself?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I think that students tend to struggle with is like kind of the idea of reasonable assumptions of figuring out, okay, what is like an assumption that is fair and okay for me to make, and what's an assumption that that's actually incorrect and that's an error, right? Or, an issue with the argument. And so I kind of invite people to think about it of like, I'm going to notice any of the assumptions. I'm going to train myself to do that. And then I can figure out afterwards, okay, what do I think is the worst here? Like I can almost categorize them, right? And the example I use for people is like if I introduce myself to you and I say, "Hey, I'm Chapin," or you say, "Hey, I'm Bailey," you can
Hey.
assume, "Hey," you can assume that I probably go by the name I've given you, right? It's a
Like, that's
reasonable
so safe. That's
assumption,
reasonable.
right? That's a reasonable assumption to say, "Oh, she probably prefers to be called that. She like maybe that's her like given name." But even saying, "Oh, that's like what she was named at birth," that's a less reasonable assumption because lots of people go by their middle name or they prefer to be called, right? So you can kind of construct your own um like parallels, I guess, of okay, what are some examples for me to anchor into of what would be reasonable in this situation and what gets further and further from that point, right? And kind of look for those things as you're going through.
Perfect. Yeah, and I feel like my rule of thumb is just, like, if I went to somebody random on the street and I just asked them, they know nothing about the LSAT, they're not trying to, like, make it all fancy with logic and reason. "Hey, if this girl just told me her name, don't we feel like that's probably what she prefers to be called?" They're like, "Yeah, of course, duh." That's pretty reasonable. Whereas if you have to add in your own story, your own expertise, your own extra sentence to, I don't know, like make it work, that could be you trying to justify an assumption that actually is a flaw. And another way to approach this is if you ever find yourself trying to add in your own assumptions to justify maybe a weaken or a strengthen answer choice, or even like a most strongly supported, like you're like, oh yeah, because I know this, this, and this, and you have to add in your whole extra story. That's how you think that your answer choice is the right answer. That's where you just want to track yourself and be like, am I adding in my own assumptions or am I, able to track these assumptions in the argument? Least amount of reasonable assumptions is what you always want to default to. Would it be reasonable for me to assume that because you are petting this dog so lovingly on your lap, this is your dog?
Oh, you could. It probably would be reasonable, but she's a foster. I'm giving her up in an hour and a half.
Wait, okay, see, this was good to
Yeah.
know. This is a
Yeah,
great example.
exactly.
Wait, that's so cute. I had a foster dog recently. Like, how
Oh,
long did you have
really?
this one? Side note, we
Um,
gotta talk about this for a second.
I picked her up Tuesday night, actually.
Oh, that was quick.
Um,
Oh my
yeah,
god.
very, very temporary. But they were flying in from Mexico, and the
Oh.
agency that I work for, they don't have like a physical location to keep any dogs. It's only fosters. And so her foster couldn't get her until this morning. So I volunteered to take her just for like a couple of nights until her foster was available. So
Cute. Sad though.
yeah. She's so
Bye-bye.
sweet. She's so sweet.
So, yeah, if you want any takeaways from this, it's just like, just because somebody has a dog, just because somebody's petting a dog, does it really mean that it's their dog? Who knows? That could be something where maybe if like, silly little Elsa argument, Chapin is petting her dog, therefore, conclusion, it must be her or sorry, I shouldn't have said her dog in the premise because that would have been confusing. Chapin's petting a dog, therefore it must be her dog. You'd be like, "Oh, hold on, couldn't you be petting a dog that's not yours? There's so many other options here." And that's another way, by the way, to look at that is just like, are there any potential alternative explanations that the argument is ignoring? Like maybe I'm petting a dog, but it's not actually my dog. I'm watching my friends, or I'm literally not even watching this dog. Like I just saw it on the street and you caught me in the moment that I am petting the dog. There's so many other options here. And so just always thinking about those things every time that you get into one of those questions that again are like flaw, assumption, strengthen, weaken, evaluate, parallel flaw, any of those, you really want to just be looking out for why are we not believing this conclusion based on this premises? And don't let them gaslight you. They're literally trying to gaslight you into thinking that the argument is good. It's not, it's bad. You got to figure out what's wrong with it before you even look at those answer choices.
That's the thing. It's fun. Like you get to be so critical of like going into it and being incredibly negative. I feel like also just like makes it a little bit less boring of like your argument sucks, actually. Like I don't think you guys are smart, and I think your argument sucks.
Big picture, when you're developing this habit, again, you want to be making sure that you're doing those on time drills. And your main goal is to just be able to arrive at a good idea of what you might be looking for in the right answer before you know or before you go into those answer choices. So you're already going into the answer choices knowing what makes the argument vulnerable to criticism. That's how they like to phrase flaw, etc. Anything else on that one? Should we shift into habit number two?
I'm ready.
Perfect. This one is all about how we get rid of answer choices. So I think a lot of people are looking out for the right answer, which makes sense. Like, of course, our end goal is to find the right answer. But should we be doing it just based on the vibes of which answer choice feels right or maybe seems more right when you're down to a couple? No bad way to look at this test. We want to be focusing on why are these answer choices wrong? Like there's four wrong answers every single time, one right answer. Making sure that you have a really good, active, aggressive, confident process of elimination. Like as soon as you see something, for example, for a flaw question that's not descriptively accurate about the stimulus, like we're not quite sure if that's even true about the stimulus. And once you break it down piece by piece, you bring it back and you're like, wait, no, that's not what the premises are saying. That's not what the conclusion is saying. As soon as you find that, that's when you get rid of it. And what I do for myself is I take out my little orange highlighter and I just get rid of any sort of, or sorry, when I get rid of my answer choices, I'm trying to track what exactly I'm getting rid of it because of. Like I'm tracking my little red flags. And so as soon as I get to that word or phrase that's unsupported by the text for like a flaw question or it must be true, most strongly supported, any of those, you could use that tag. It's test. Same with necessary assumption. That's what I'm just going to be like, no, there's just no way. And say that I'm stuck between two. And I'm like, I don't know which one really seems right here. If you're ever tempted to lean towards the one that seems more right, it's when you want to reel yourself in and be like, no, I think I'm doing this wrong. I got to figure out what's wrong with one of these two so I can be sure that I've ended up on the right answer. Thoughts on this? How has this looked like in your studying, Chapin? Did you have kind of like any shifts also when you were approaching the answer choices differently?
Yeah, I mean, I think that my main thing, and I think a lot of people end up at this point where it's like, I'm always down to two answers. Like, I'm always down to two. And then I'm somehow picking the wrong one, right? Of like, okay, so what do I do now? I think that, and I feel like we talk a lot about this in live classes because I've heard students be like, oh, this instructor says this instructor says this. Um, is like, if you're down to two answers, we have two options. Either both of them are wrong and they are logically, functionally the same, which I would say is a rarer occurrence. But maybe they're both wrong. Okay. If you can't find a difference between these two, then you have to eliminate both of them and start over. Right. Or what is more likely is there's a difference between the two of them, right? And so I started looking just for a difference between two answers if I was down to two, instead of, okay, I'm going to bang my head against the wall until I figure out just which one is right. I'm like, okay, approaching it from the idea, I know there's a difference between them. And so, what is that difference? Because a lot of the time, we're just looking at answers and we've read the stimulus, we've been on the question, maybe let's say now for like a minute and a half, and we're freaking out. And I'm like,
Right. And the
everything
panic
looks,
ensues, and you're like,
yes,
deer in the
panic
headlights, what do I
ensues,
do?
and everything looks the same, right? But it's like, if you approach it knowing, right? Like, don't let yourself, oh my gosh, they look the same. Like, I can't figure it out. No, there's a difference. Figure it out. Find out what the difference is. Or look for any kind of misreading. Because I found when I was doing my like wrong answer journal and stuff, a lot of the questions that I was getting wrong, I was reading too fast. And then I wasn't figuring out that I had misread something. I had just like remained with the same kind of understanding of it the entire time. So I'm like, at that point, if I can't figure out the difference between two answers, okay, now I'm going to reread the stimulus or the question and make sure that I actually understand what we're doing and understand what we're talking about. Because I don't know about everybody else, but I have a horrible short-term memory, like
Oh,
horrible.
same.
And so I would find if I was like really locked into answer choices and I was like, I feel like especially the assumption questions, I would almost, if I spent too long on it, get lost in like, wait, what was I even doing in the
Yeah,
first
like,
place?
what am I
Like,
supposed to do right now? I don't even
yeah, what
know.
was
No,
I
that's so
doing?
valid.
So I'm like, if you can't find a difference between two answer choices, my first step would be reread the question stem and make sure that you're like actually doing what you should be doing, right? Like you have the right goal in mind. Um,
Right.
yeah.
And on that note, if you don't know really how to approach different question types, if you feel kind of wishy washy when you get down to like, oh, I don't really remember what the difference is when I'm supposed to evaluate these necessary assumption answer choices versus sufficient assumption, definitely focus on making sure that you do get all of those down. Like core curriculum is a good place to go back to. Any of our live classes, especially the ones that are more focused on the question types that you're struggling with. I always try to make sure that my students are walking away with like specific step by steps that they can follow to be able to prepare for the right answer when they're reading the stimulus, double check your answer, and really walk away just 100% confident and also do it as efficiently as possible. So that's what these classes are for. That's what the curriculum is for. That's what even just doing individual drills of question types at a time and watching those explanation videos is for. But once you have those strategies down, it's like you really just want to make sure that you're implementing them. And yeah, I agree. My advice for getting down to two answer choices is very similar. It's like, what's the difference between the two? There's got to be some sort of difference. Yeah, the only thing that I would add is a lot of times wrong answers. Like it is good if you can realize that there's maybe two answer choices that you're down to and you're like, wait, these kind of seem really similar. Just double check that they're not actually different and they seem really similar, because I think sometimes when people are like, I can't find a difference, there is a difference. Like usually there is a difference between these answer choices, but kind of what you were getting at in the first place is like, well, a lot of them we can get rid of for similar reasons as each other. Like these both are just not descriptively accurate about the argument, something like that. Anyways, there's usually a difference. Once you find that difference, then you just want to pit those red flags against each other and be like, well, this one is trying to squeeze this thing in there that's not quite right. Whereas this other one has no red flags. It's just maybe not how I would have phrased it, but that doesn't make it wrong. Like that's totally okay.
Yeah. 100%. That's the thing too I would add on the elimination is like I think something that I was really struggling with for a bit was once I started being able to pre-phrase, then I was like, okay, well, once I've pre-phrased, I'm standing on business. This is my answer. And if I don't see it, then we're all freaking out. Like, you know what I mean? And so let the pre-phrase guide you and defend against wrong answers, but also don't let it give you the horse blinders of if I don't see this exactly, it's not going to be right. Because sometimes what they do, which is so sneaky of them, is they know what your pre-phrase is going to kind of look like, and they'll give you something that is similar, but has something wrong with it. And so just don't force yourself into picking that because you're like, well, this looks the most like my pre-phrase. Because it's like the pre-phrase doesn't have to be exactly what the right answer is, right? Especially for like something like strengthen, weaken, stuff like that. A lot of the time, those things we would have like multiple things that we could add, right? Versus like a sufficient assumption where we really are looking probably for something that is very, very specific. And so, yeah, let the pre-phrase like defend you and guide you, but also don't let it narrow you in too much.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what we're talking about with like just making sure that you have the ways to test each question type, like flaw, two tests on each answer choice. Is this entirely descriptively accurate? Is this a flaw? Necessary assumption, if you want those tests. Does this have to be true if the conclusion really does follow from the premises? Then when I negate this, what if I were to assume this not to be true? That's what negating is. Would that destroy the argument? Would it make it so my conclusion can no longer follow? And then quick, gimme for the sufficient assumption, because that kind of makes sense to throw in here as well. Double check that your answer choice actually, if it were true, applies the premises. Like it could be a larger umbrella under which the premises fit, but it still applies and then gets you to the same conclusion. It guarantees your conclusion. So just making sure that you have the ways to approach each question type and really slow down in those answer choices. Like I force myself to pause every couple words when I get to the answer choices. I mean, I try to do this for the stimulus as well, but like sometimes that'll be more like mid sentence or after each sentence. Answer choices, though, I'm like, pause every couple words, bring it right back to the stimulus. Is this descriptively accurate? Or like for a strengthen or weaken question, if this were true, how would it impact? And then only then do I let myself continue on to read, because like we were saying before, a lot of times you get down to a couple, you end up falling for the wrong answer just due to misreading or just due to maybe reading the whole entire answer choice altogether, making a flash judgment on what it means and not quite getting the little nuances there.
Yeah. And I think good drills too. Like if you are somebody who's kind of scoring in the 160s and you're like, okay, what do I need to be doing here to push up to the 170s, right? Is like you can do some kind of confidence drills for yourself of, okay, I'm gonna, like Bailey was saying, like highlight what you feel like is wrong in the answer choice. And once you reach that, peace out. Just quit reading and eliminate it. And give yourself, I'm not saying, listen, I'm very much a person who wants to, like, I need to see everything, I need to know everything. So on the test, I'm not saying you have to do that, but give yourself like the empirical evidence that you can through drills, and it will build your confidence of like when I see something and I'm like, that's a red flag, okay, yeah, I'm right about that, right? Like, and so you can do those drills where you're like, okay, I read the first word and I hate it and I'm moving on immediately. And that's good enough, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so, like, you can kind of call those confidence drills, play around with that in drilling. Like, sometimes you do it more untimed, really make sure that you get down to the bottom of it. Sometimes you do it more timed and you're just like, let me just see what happens when I trust myself. And then you can figure out that trial and error from drilling. And then when you get to those full PTs, full sections, again, it's just going to be something that you've already trained yourself to do, like muscle memory.
Yeah.
Um, Amazing. All right. Anything else on that one? Should we move into our final habit?
Let's move into the final habit.
Yay. Oh, wait, last thing I was going to say, in case this helps anybody conceptualize this, is I think for the answer choice elimination thing, too many people, myself included, for most of my studying, are being too nice or charitable to these answer choices. It's almost like the answer choices are sirens. They're pulling you in every which direction. Ooh, come here. I'm so pretty. Like, choose me. And you're like, no, I am not going to fall for that. Like, shifting that mental attitude, shifting that mindset, and being like, I know 4 of you are imposters. I know 4 of you are wrong, but you're acting like you're right. They're designed to make you choose them, and you're not going to be nice or charitable to those anymore. We're not trying to like fit a square peg into a round hole, trying to add in your own assumptions to make an answer choice work. We're just looking for something that is right on its own. The words on the page are the words on the page.
Yes. Also, just to add to that too, Bailey, like I think visualization helps so much of like, okay, when I'm reading this, what does this actually mean? And I feel like that sounds silly sometimes, but forcing yourself to anchor into a real example again is a skill that when I was going through the core curriculum, I was like, how am I going to do this? Like, JY is talking, I like will always remember the first example, at least when I was going through the core curriculum, was the shrimp. It's like blue shrimp and pink shrimp and something. And he's like
I
talking
don't
about these
even remember
genetic.
this.
Oh my God, it literally like haunted me. It was like these genetic differences in shrimp. And I'm like, how am I supposed to come up with that? How am I supposed to do that? But anchoring into as you're reading the stimulus, but also the answer choices, like, okay, if I gave myself a real visual example of what this looks like, what this means, it helps you so much to actually understand what it's saying and kind of the implications of what it is, right? So yeah, like you were saying, just be very specific about the answer choices and the stimulus in terms of that. Like, okay, what is the impact of this, right?
Agreed. Perfect. Um, all right. Third pattern. A lot of how you get better at this test, what separates out the 170 scores from the others, is how we review. And what you really want to be doing is, I mean, number one, we've probably, hopefully, drilled this into you in previous podcasts, wrong answer journaling. If you don't have one yet, suck it up, do it now. I ignored wrong answer journaling for most of my studying, and it was literally one of the catalysts to get me in the 170s because I had to slow down. And, like it seems so silly once you realize the process of it and the benefits. But like I had to figure out what I was doing wrong so I didn't keep making the same mistakes. So if you don't have a wrong answer journal yet, create one. Try to keep track of questions that you miss, especially the ones that really throw you off. And you're just asking yourself, how did I talk myself into the wrong answer? And then, of course, why is it wrong? Why did I overlook the right answer? Maybe I eliminated it. Maybe I didn't even read it. Maybe I didn't read it carefully. And then why is it right? And then I need an action item, some sort of drill set, maybe new strategy that I'm going to implement that makes sure that I do better next time. And I try to make sure that those are more practical, not just like try harder to read. I used to do that for myself all the time. It would be like, read better, silly girl. And it's like, no, 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 no. Reading better is not going to help somebody read better. Telling somebody to read better definitely doesn't help. Telling them how to read better, like pausing every couple of words, translating to your own words, bringing it back to the stimulus, and then moving on. That's something practical you can use for yourself. So that's my overview for wrong answer journal. But then I think that also what separates out these 170 plus scores is how you review the answer journal. or the answer journal, the wrong answer journal. If you are just looking at each individual question, kind of like one in itself, and there's no connections between this question and other questions, well, yeah, this test is going to feel really impossible. It's going to feel like you keep missing these individual questions and you're all missing them for very different reasons. And, like there's no way to improve. How do we improve? We start seeing those patterns, those connections, those parallels between questions. We got plenty of different question types. You might be missing a lot of flaw questions. And then you realize that you got to figure out what your strategy is for flaw questions. Maybe you realize that you're missing a lot of reasoning related questions. Like maybe what's popping up in your analytics is not the question types as much, but like conditional reasoning, causal reasoning, questions that are tagged with link assumption, which really just means that there's some sort of gap or hole in the reasoning where it's more of a term shift between premise and conclusion. There's plenty of other ones like that, but yeah, kind of similar here. Chapin, how did this show up in your own studying? What did you realize that you needed to look out for? How do you look for patterns?
Yeah, I mean, I was the same. Wrong answer journal, blind review. I was like, I don't need to do any of that. That's
Same.
whatever.
I was like,
And
I'm
then
better than all this. And I
no,
was so
exactly. I
not,
was
like
like,
literally not.
yeah, you guys keep doing that. I'm gonna keep doing this. So whatever. But yeah, I got to a point where I was like high 160s. I could not consistently break into the 170s. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, I was convinced that I was misunderstanding something. I had some kind of fundamental issue. Um, and then I actually got his 7 stage tutor, and he was like, you get it. Like, you need to relax. You get it. There's not really a lot of like understanding we can work on. It's very much strategy. And I was like, oh. I was like, I wanted you to just fix me, but whatever, that's great. But I started using a wrong answer journal because of him. And what I started doing actually, which I feel like sounds a little bit neurotic, but honestly, I recommend this. And it really, really worked for me is after every PT I did, I would do my wrong answer journal, but I would also sit down. I would make a Google Doc that was like the date of the PT and the number. And then I would write out all of my personal takeaways of like, this is what felt good. This is what felt bad. This is what went poorly or went well, whatever. I would like write like low key, just like a journal entry about like how it went. Then when I was reviewing the PT, I would add, okay, like this is actually kind of the result. This is how it went. These are the questions I was missing. These were kind of like the timing takeaways, like things like that. Um, and then I would go through my wrong answer journal and like you're saying, like look for patterns, right? So I'm like, okay, now I'm looking for certain things that I'm noticing kind of from like a zoomed out perspective as I'm taking my PTs. And I go through my wrong answer journal, look for, okay, is this an issue? Is this an issue? Is this an issue? Whatever. And so basically what I did was I built myself a document and I share it with students now. So if you're interested in looking into my brain,
Love. I want to
I,
see your brain.
yeah,
Seems all nice and
right.
pink and squishy in there.
I have a document for RC and for LR that is by every single question type, like my personal, okay, this is what you need to be doing, and this is what you consistently miss. And if you're struggling, like, so we have our tests, right? And we talk a lot about, okay, if you are on a flaw question, you're looking for descriptive accuracy. You're looking for, is this an error? 100%. But then I would kind of add in my own things of like, okay, if I'm missing a flaw question, this is typically what I'm doing. And so I kind of built up this like set of, okay, these are my habits and that's fine, but I just need to be aware of them, right? Like I think a lot of it is about self awareness. And the other thing that I'll say on that is like, I also got to a point where I was like, okay, let's say, like when I was testing, conditional reasoning was not really my favorite thing to be doing. It wasn't something that I like absolutely hated, but it also wasn't something that I loved. Yeah, which I feel like is a lot of people. And I feel like for a while I had been like, okay, I need to get faster at conditional reasoning, right? I need to get faster. I need time to diagram. I need time to understand it. It takes me a little bit longer, whatever. So I need to quicken it up. And then when I realized I was like, okay, well, why don't I just speed up on the questions that I'm good at and like build myself more time for the questions that I know are harder for me, right? So if that's flaw questions for you or parallel questions, which I feel like so many people are not a fan of, whatever it is, sometimes you don't have to be sitting there going, I have to get better at this question type. I have to get faster at this question type. It's like, play to your strengths, be aware of what your weaknesses are. It's okay that you have them, but you just have to be like, you have to know what they are so that then you can play around them?
Agreed. Yeah. No, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Like a lot of what you're talking about too is just spending more time reflecting on all of these questions that you're missing and kind of synthesizing them. Like when you go through your wrong answer journal, and a habit that I got into that helped me do something similar was just combing over my wrong answer journal as kind of a warm up every morning. Like I would try to catch up on my wrong answer journal by the end of the day. And then the next day I start my studying and I'm like, okay, let me just kind of skim through my past few days' entries and see if there's any trends that I can notice here. And it's like, oh, yep, those necessary assumption questions are coming up a lot. I've been struggling with those. Let's see what kind of mistakes that I'm consistently making. Let's bring them over to one place. I like you that you have one big document to kind of keep track of all of that. And then focus on like actively implementing new strategies to make it better. Like then at that point in that day, you're like, okay, I've been missing a lot of necessary assumption. Maybe it's time for me to do a more necessary assumption focused drill. And then when you're going into it, again, you're focusing a lot more on strategy, mindset, how to approach those answer choices, less on the maybe overall frustration of I keep getting this score on my PTs or I keep getting this many questions wrong. Like I think so many people, by the way, just big picture, are so stuck on this idea of like breaking into the 170s and it feels like this magical extra layer of, LSAT. And I don't even know what to say here, like eliteness. Um, but it feels like that number has so much power. And whatever numbers you've been seeing on your previous tests also have so much power. And it's like, does getting hung up on that, is that going to help? Like, is that going to be the most effective way to get out of the rut that you're in? Not at all. Like, how you get into the 170s is by understanding this test, by understanding how to double check those answer choices. And like what Chapin's talking about right now, making sure that you're saving yourself time for those harder questions by playing to your strengths and not spending extra time on questions where you're like, oh, yeah, this is great. I got this. I know. Let's move on. Amazing. All right. Anything else to add on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think like skipping strategies and stuff too. Like, I feel like I was not a like skip and flag or do
Me neither.
anything because I was like, I'm better than this. I'll just do the question.
Same. I like held
Like,
myself to this crazy standard where I was like, well, I have to get every single question right. So why would I be allowed to skip anything? But
yeah,
like, no, that
exactly.
could
I'm
just
like,
be
what?
strategic.
Yeah, what's the point of that? But yeah, like I talk a lot with my students about the kind of idea of like conserving your mental energy, of like, okay, I want to go into a section with a plan of where I'm going to spend my energy and how I'm going to spend it because it is a long test. So also thinking about like at a certain point, okay, what are strategies I can use? Like I said, for the questions I find a bit easier to instead of need to utilize 100% of my brain, utilize like 70% of it so that 30% of my brain can sleep until I really, really need
She's
it.
resting.
Is resting. Um, but yeah, like it does get into like a big strategy piece for that, of like it's a long game and we have to be thinking about it in that perspective as well of like I'm gonna have to do this a bunch of times. So
Right. And so on that note, a good skipping strategy is just like choosing a question type or two that usually gives you more of a run for your money. Like you take a lot of time on it. Maybe you're more likely to get it wrong. For me, that's parallel flaw. As soon as I see those, especially if it's after question 15 and it's a little bit longer, I'm going to just flag it, bubble in D or E because I don't know. I'm superstitious. I feel like those are more right. I'm sure it's all equal. And then I am going to move right along. And then hopefully, if I've, distributed my time well, which once you get into the habit of just approaching these full sections and doing them so many times, you'll be able to figure out how to do this. I give myself about like 5 minutes at the end, depending on how many parallel method of reasoning, or well, parallel flaw, parallel method of reasoning questions there were. And then I can approach those with the mental leeway that I needed to be able to actually get them right with all of my brain capacity that I've been saving up.
yeah. Cause then too, you're like, okay, I've done everything else. Like whatever way you can build mental safety for yourself as you're taking the test is great. Cause then, yeah, you're not thinking about, oh my gosh, I have to do this question and then I have to do 10 more, right? Like, it's like, okay, I've done my section. I'm happy. I'm calm. And now I can just focus on these.
Agreed. Yes. Yeah, so much of this, like, if you guys are seeing these parallels between the different habits that we're giving you, so much of it is mental games. So much of it is just changing the way that you're approaching the test so that you can be in charge of the test. You're the one that has the power over it. It doesn't have the power over you. And a fun thing with this is that these habits, like once you get good at them, they kind of reinforce or lead to each other. Like when you're tracking those assumptions in the argument, when you're able to spot the gap before you go into those answer choices, you're already setting yourself up for success in terms of making like stronger, more confident decisions, clearly eliminating answer choices. And as you get better at eliminating, you're also going to get better at reviewing. Like you can go into your wrong answer journal and be like, oh, yeah, I did have a reason why I eliminated this. Now let's see if it was actually a valid reason to eliminate it or if I can need to like change up my thought process. And as you get better at review, you start making less and less mistakes. Again, you get to see these point gains across multiple different question types once you're pinpointing those question types that are giving you the most trouble. And then this whole test just gets a lot easier. I'm like, these test makers don't have that many tricks up their sleeve. These questions are really predictable. There's so many patterns. And again, you have the power over it, not the test having the power over you.
Period.
Yes. I was like,
You
that
are
felt
in
powerful.
charge.
You're in charge.
No, but seriously, like, I feel like it's something that we echo so much, and I think when you're prepping, especially at the beginning, you're like, "How is this test at all predictable?" Like, I'm just, like, hanging on here.
Right. Like I feel like I'm
Um,
just being pulled in every which
yeah,
direction, blah, blah, blah.
but it is, like, it's so majorly that process of review where you're like, "Oh, like, I see they have done this a few times," right? Like, something I like doing too is, like, track in RC. A lot of the time I find they'll have, like, a wrong answer in every single answer choice that's playing on the same, like, one assumption they want you
They
to
love to
make.
do that. Yes, yes,
Yes, and I'm like,
exactly. Like,
"That."
there's this question about, like, the language of the Canadian Constitution or it's not even about that, it's, like, about the, like, enforcement of it, and so many of the questions, like, the wrong answers are trying to get you to think that, like, the author wants them to change the language in the Constitution, but we never wanted to change the language in the
Yes,
Constitution, they said it was necessarily general. I'm like, I know that
yes.
RC passage so well, and that's a good
Yeah,
one where it's just,
no,
like,
I
so
also
many
love that
traps.
RC passage.
Okay, love, amazing. So yeah, it's super good to just notice those things. And then as you keep seeing these patterns, you're like, ah, yep, this is predictable. This is easy. We can crush it. But it doesn't feel easy at first. And that's so normal. I felt like this test was impossible for the longest time, but it is possible. And on that note, that's probably a good segue to wrapping up here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you found this helpful, like it, subscribe, check out everything that we offer at Seven Sage. We got a whole prep platform out there. We have ongoing courses that are more curriculum based, like anywhere from 4 to 12 weeks of working with the same instructor. We have live classes that are more pop in every day. Come get what you need, focus on individual question types or reasoning. And also, of course, law school admissions consulting if you need any help with the admissions process.
Yeah, and, like, the thing is, the LSAT is really hard. Like, we're not
It's so
here to
hard.
tell you that it's gonna be easy and, we can just figure it out. It is really hard and it's frustrating, and, I mean, the thing that I love about instructing is we've all been there. Like, we can all say I can sit here and tell you guys,
Oh, yeah,
"Hey,
the
I read an
struggle
RC
is
passage once."
shared and it's real.
Yeah, and I crashed out for, like, 3 months, and I took 3 months off because I read the riddled basins passage, and I was like, "I'm actually giving up. I'm good. I'm good on all of this. I
That's
don't
so
wanna do this
fair.
anymore. I'm giving up." So yeah, we know the LSAT is hard, but we can get through it anyway. We can break into the magical 170s. Anybody can do it. There's no magic, skill set that somebody else is missing that Bailey has that you
Right.
don't. And that's why you can't. Everybody can do it. It is such a learnable test. And we will build that set of skills, and then it won't feel as hard, even though it's hard.
Exactly. CL said it's hard, but we're going to help you crush it anyways. And that's that.
Mic
We'll see you
drop.
guys next week. Mic drop.
Mic drop.
Literally dropping.